I kid you not, I just videoed this whole spiel for like 12 minutes, and then I stood up and looked at my footage and I was like, all of this is out of focus.
I feel like I always film right after I've worked out or done something to look really gross. Maybe it's because I'm like really hungry after I work out and food is on the mind. Food's always on the mind. So we are just about to go to dinner because my sister and her boyfriend, now fiance, just got engaged and we're celebrating and it's really exciting. And we're at her house right now, and it's really adorable because my sister's so excited and I realize that she's my older sister, but she feels like a little sister right now. So today is more of like a lazy weekend kind of day. I slept in a ton, so really all I've been doing today is watching YouTube, and I went on a run and eating, which is kind of like the best kind of day you can have, you know? So right now I am just about to cook some veggies, so roast some veggies. I think I'm gonna roast some Brussels sprouts and some cauliflower tonight, and we shall see how that goes. I will show you sort of step by step how I am going to be doing it. So I start by cutting my sprouts into fourths. The smaller you cut them, then the crunchier and kind of flakier they'll be because they're smaller leaves after you roast them in the oven. And I add some olive oil into the sprouts. I don't like adding a ton of olive oil just because I don't think it really needs it, but I do enough just to sort of coat them and make sure that they're well coated so that spices and stuff can stick to it. Then in a small bowl, or I guess you could just wing it, and not use a bowl, I mix together a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper and some garlic flakes. Oh, that comes later. This is Southwest seasoning. It's essentially just a spicier seasoning, and you can really pick any seasoning you want. And here are the garlic flakes. I think garlic makes everything better. I probably learned that from my mom. But I mix all four of those things together in that bowl so that they sort of are evenly dispersed, and then I will take them over to my sprouts and pour them over the sprouts and mix it all up, and the oil's already on the sprouts, so it's going to be really well coated. And of course, if you want to add more spices, you can do that. I think it just sort of takes some winging of the process, so you might not like your first batch of sprouts, but you might like the next. And see, I'm adding more. I do it by sight, but I also do it just kind of, I wing it, honestly. I'm not a professional at all. If Gordon Ramsay watched this, he'd be very disappointed. So I put all my sprouts on a pan with a baking sheet or parchment paper, whatever you want to use. And then I put the oven to 410, that's Fahrenheit. You could probably do it higher than that, and I usually say about 20 minutes, but typically it's when they're crunchy, and that could be more than 20. For the cauliflower, I just cut it into bite-sized pieces and essentially do the same as the Brussels sprouts. It's pretty simple. I just cover it with some olive oil so that it's well coated, and I add some salt and mix that all up in there. I always think start with a small amount of salt, and then if you want more, then add more, but it's easier to add more than take it out. I only add pepper to the salt, so only pepper and salt for this recipe. And then, this is my favorite part, I get balsamic vinegar, and after I put the cauliflower on a pan and baking sheet, I spread the balsamic vinegar over the cauliflower just visually as much as I want. That's sort of how I do it. I mean, unless you want to eat raw cauliflower, there's really no way to taste it. But I cover it until however much I want is on there. And then I add some Daiya vegan cheese, and I think these are the mozzarella shreds. And I just spread as much on as I want. Again, it's very visual. And I cook it the same as the Brussels sprouts for probably around 20 minutes. I think the cauliflower finishes cooking a little bit sooner, so just keep that in mind. One thing I wanted to talk about, which I'll definitely talk about later in more detail in probably another video, is how hard it is to eat at restaurants. And I think it depends on where you're from, because I think in bigger cities there are more options. So like if you live in New York City or Los Angeles, or maybe like, I don't know, maybe Atlanta or something, there are probably more vegan food options. But as of late, I haven't found that many. I mean, there are 2 that I know of, or 3 that I know of in my city, but it's difficult to go to just a generic restaurant and order something vegan, from what I've found. The other night, when I was with my family at dinner, I was like, I can eat one thing on this menu, and it was served family style, so I was like, I'm eating nothing tonight, essentially, and that was really, really hard. But today, when I went to lunch with my mom and one of her friends, it was Mediterranean kind of food, and that was a lot easier to order, and there were a lot more options. So I think it just depends on where you go. On a side note, I went to TJ Maxx today, and there was a table full of purses that said vegan leather, like handbags, and I thought that was really cool. And I thought it was cool that they put a big sign there, like it's becoming more of a norm, which is, I look forward to the future. Okay, so for this I just dried and cut up some tofu and then soaked it in a bunch of different sauces: hoisin sauce, soy sauce, rice wine vinegar, lime juice, sesame oil, garlic, and some green onion. And then I would kind of stir them around in the sauce and then put them on the griddle so that they could grill on both sides. And I put some sesame seeds on it as well. Okay, so I am attempting to make pancakes, and let's be real, they turned out pretty awfully. At first they were like super flat, like a really thin cookie, but then I went back and kind of threw a bunch of random stuff in it and made them slightly better, but they taste a little funky, and you know, first time's always the worst, So it's the end of week 1 of going vegan, or changing my, I don't know what's going on. I'm not gonna lie to you, I definitely messed up. Day 1, very much messed up. I ate several things with cheese in it, and in my defense, it was, my family and I went to a restaurant, and they didn't really have anything that I could eat. It was rough. This was a rough week. So, there were some positives. I think my favorite thing to do is roast veggies. Easiest thing to do, yummiest thing to do. People like it. I like it. There's not much to clean up. Simplicity, A+. I made pancakes this morning, and they were probably the worst thing I've ever made in my life. And I've made some bad dishes. This was the worst, probably. They kind of looked like cookies, because they were like really thin, almost crepe-like, but broke like a cookie. It was rough. Last night I made tofu, and I didn't like it. I did eat it. I didn't like it because I think the recipe that I sort of used to give me an idea of what to do with it used a ton of this one sauce that I really don't like. And I think if someone liked that sauce, they would be crazy about it, but it was just so much of that one sauce that I was like, okay, not a fan. It was just a strange flavor. Strange things happened this week. I'm going to make an expectations video. I'm still going to talk about an expectation here, but I'm going to make an expectations video where I sort of talk about what my expectations are for the long run, like for a long-term
vegan lifestyle. What I notice in the future, this is only week 1, but what I notice about, you know, what I feel, do I feel different, whatever. But for this week, I know that a lot of people have worried about me being hungry. So, you know, how can you live off of plants? Aren't you gonna be starving? Aren't you gonna, you know, you need fish, you need protein, you need all that kind of stuff. And I'm happy to report that I was not hungry. I was hungry like post workout, but I wasn't hungry just because I wasn't eating enough. I was very full after every meal. Yeah. So that's good. That's a positive. I think probably the biggest positive was people, how they reacted to this. So I know, I mean, I've been pescatarian for like almost 10 years, and I know that people often kind of assume that if you're vegetarian, if you're pescatarian, if you're vegan, if you're a raw vegan, if you're, I don't know, on the paleo meal plan, whatever, that you're gonna try to convert them and that you're gonna be really like abrasive, I guess. And I am guilty of those thoughts as well. I definitely was sort of like, okay, you know, what happens if I mess up? What happens if I make something and it's not totally vegan on accident, or if I eat something on accident? Are people gonna come after me? Are people gonna shun me? And I've been extremely happy with how kind and supportive they are, and I've had several people who've messaged me just to say like, oh, how's it going? How's the shift going? How's your meal plan going? You know, you know, what's difficult? They want to talk about it. You know, what's difficult? What's easy? What do you like? You know, what are some of your plans? Things like that. I've been very surprised by how supportive they are, and I mean, there are people who comment on whatever recipe I make and say, oh, that looks really good, or I'm gonna try that. And it's just really nice to see that there's a tight-knit community and that there's no real shunning. It's more, oh yeah, we're excited that you're trying to go vegan, that you're joining us on this journey. And I've also been very positively surprised with people who like my family and my friends who aren't vegan, and some of whom are meat eaters, just being okay with what I choose to do, what I choose to eat. And I know that like today I got a text from a friend who said, you want to get brunch or lunch next week? And I was sort of like, okay, just to warn you, I'm eating vegan. And she immediately was like, okay, cool, so, you know, this is a good vegan place, or we can go here. You know, they have multiple, like, they serve a really good, someone just yelled. They serve a really good vegan, you know, brunch special, things like that. I've been very surprised by that. I've been very happy about that. And, you know, my family tries everything I make. And it's nice. It's nice to feel like you're being really supported. It makes me feel like, oh, you know, I have friends and family who support me, and then I have this new community that is supportive of my recipes and videos and stuff like that. So it makes me feel like, I can do this. This is so easy. It definitely encourages me to enjoy the transition, which I think is, some people get really stressed about, you know, I have to eat this, 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 and this, or I can't eat this, 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 and this, and I'm just sort of having fun. And I mean, I haven't messed up since day one, but I think that if you, at least for me, approaching it from a very positive, stress-free mindset, and, you know, mistakes sometimes are made, and things can get frustrating, and recipes can taste like really bad. Really bad. Almost said a bad word. Recipes can taste really, really horrible sometimes, and that's okay. It's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to not like something. I think it's better to, at least for me, to approach it from a really positive, really, approach it from a very positive and fun way. And I've always wanted this experience to be fun and stress-free, and I really love cooking, and this is just getting me into the kitchen even more. And I think it's really great, and it's something that you can share with the people around you. And I'm excited about this process, and I'm excited about sharing it with whoever wants to watch. And this is week 1. And week 2 will probably be just as hard, and I will probably make just as many mistakes, and I will probably make some really gross food before I get better.